Hello everyone, this is Geek Dragon, and welcome back to another episode of Fire Emblem Heroes. As you can see, we did alright this week. Not too big of a surprise though, because we had both bonus mythics this week, so pretty solid. And of course the other thing is we're not in vaults, so we're up against generally not as stacked players, which generally helps out. Still find it strange, the level 10 structures and their thresholds, specifically less than 82. I don't know what the deal is with that, but probably because they're trying to scale it out to higher levels for more content and of course. But of course, we give folks the option of player phasing Duma, but no one really ever goes for it because he can do a decent amount of damage on the counter. And if he can't meme over his damage reduction, he can be annoying to beat with his HP stats. So I actually goofed, and when I was setting up skill sets, I didn't realize that Zeros also had Distant Counter Dragon Seal. So he didn't even have Distant Counter on. This week on offense, we did alright. A couple of unit sacks, either to silly mistakes or couldn't really do much again. Definitely had an interesting time using Sather. Her C slot definitely comes in handy, but the thing is, there's a lot of particular mythics that are used to ton that buff res. So a lot of times, a lot of units would have their res in the 40s at least, and some of them even in the 50s. I even saw a harmonized Catria with Phantom res as well. Of course, the dodge Elamine is, for the most part, it's less so for dodging Sather, but pretty spoops in terms of the res wars. So there was plenty of times where our Sather could not proc the C-slot, but when we actually used it systematically, we got some pretty solid mileage out of it, forcing dancers to waste their dance on a unit that we were forced to enter with Sather, so that was nice. Of course, it would be completely imbalanced if it were to proc at the start of every turn, but, I mean, it really feels like turn 3 is the end-all be-all turn for our offense, because of course if our bolt tower can go off, that'll be on turn 3. And generally we set up for turn 1. And then turn 2, we can go in turn 2 sometimes, so that we can get the turn 3 bolt tower damage. But sometimes we need a little more setup because we have to break a ton of structures or whatnot. So overall, I'd say not too terrible. But speaking of not too terrible, our opponent surrenders here. Probably because AoE plus 2 dancers are incoming. So that probably would not end well. Speaking of ending well, ever since the friend cap increase to 200, I keep forgetting that when I face players in Arena with pretty stacked units, I have this thing called the option to send a friend request instead of infinitely fishing in the friend recommendation section. So I feel like I should probably stop getting the habit of immediately tapping don't send the friend request, because there's definitely some units I would like to have options for in my friends list. For example, I just completely blanked on that unit's name. We'll have to think of that unit's name later. That's awkward. But here, lots of their units are wide open for the kill, so we're able to pick up a triple kill, and we've already at this point fixed Duma not having Distant Counter Dragon Seal, so not great for our opponent. Here we are with probably End Turn, the sequel. Good ol' End Turn shenanigans. Seems like there's no far save though. Looks like they're gonna have Brave Female Byleth as their range carry, I would presume. So no AoE for Legendary Lilna. Seems solid. They correctly used Sather to force Olivia to dance, so they got a free turn there. Now they just have to worry about Legendary Nana versus Halloween Myrrh, but we all know that Legendary Nana can actually do a little bit of damage. So she's going to be able to terrorize the enemy here. Pick up that double kill. And so they end up surrendering. Here's what looks to be a Gale Force team of sorts. Basically, whenever we see Summer Edelgard, you can pretty much assume some sort of Gale Force set. Especially if you know, like Thor, definitely can help out with Gale Force strats, and Sather, she can definitely help Gale Force strategies and do a bit of damage herself. The main utility of Sather is if you can teleport her in and use her C slot to force units to end turn, because of course, if you're gonna Wings of Mercy and whatnot, you're going to not have to have as much res. You don't need to stack up as much res to force the enemy to hit end turn, because in an ideal scenario, you'll be literally right next to them. So it's just going to be a direct res check, which a lot of times Sather can win. So that just ends up with a good time for using Sather when you can get her in. That's the problem with Gale Force's consistency. You can definitely beat a lot of teams right now though with Gale Force, simply because people aren't necessarily directly trying to counter it. In some sense though, it's not even worthwhile to try and counter, because you have to deal with this thing called 4 other offense teams. The average player is not like me and only runs one team. So if you specifically engineer your team to deal with most Gale Force teams, then you're probably going to suffer in other departments, like having actual kill power or whatnot, so when people can just bring their end turn teams and probably get a win that way. So it's pretty... Building a super solid defense mostly comes down to being able to beat the top strats in the game, and the most brain dead strats, of course, because, well, the thing about the most brain dead strats in the game is they're pretty hard to beat without the right resources. And here, of course, we know that Duocorn is going to have slight problems against Ascended Bjorn, because she's only ever going to get 2 attacks in. She can't survive a counter without some real shenanigans. So then it comes down to, can she 2-shot, and we're running Deflect Magic, so it's incredibly difficult to 2-shot here. Even if, for example, Corn has 100 attack here, ignoring her dealt damage and all those shenanigans, that does, what is that, 68 damage or something? So, I guess to be honest, if they really tried, they could do it. Except for the fact that we also have this thing called Ice Mirror Fighter. If they went in turn 1 and went hyper aggressive since they had safe defense, I'm pretty sure they probably could have won. Maybe. Then again, maybe not, because I just realized that Ice Mirror's at 1 cooldown, so the second attack would proc Hardy Fighter Ice Mirror, and so you would basically have to kill him the first shot, because the second shot is not going to be a great time on damage. So maybe not. I guess there's also the... Never mind, yeah, there's the Hex Trap. I guess you can't necessarily go in that way, turn 1, without risking the biscuit, unless you have enough HP. So here they face tank with Brave Hector. Straightforward enough, but got legendary Nana, and you really need to debuff her attack if you're going to survive and have a massive defensive HP stat. If you're going to survive against her as a green unit. Or the alternative option is just to casually have damage reduction like Brave Dimitri does on Refine as a green unit, forehead. Definitely totally reasonable. I mean, the new Duo Asker has the same thing as a mage. Don't know what to think about him because, of course, again, unlike Brave Dimitri, Duo Asker is much slower, so he's much more reliant on that guaranteed follow-up attack to attack more than once, and as we all know in this game, at this point, one-shotting everything is not exactly the most consistent thing to do. But what is consistent is chucking Brave Dimitri into our red heavy defense and winning, which did not come as a surprise. We basically have zero tech against Brave Dimitri on this team, except for the fact that they literally just left him alone. So his effects weren't proccing. Yeah, that is going to be a small problem. His res stat is not that large still, and Theros, I mean, her defense stat's not great here, but yeah, don't leave him alone like that. And with that overall, not too big of a surprise, we did manage to get mostly wins on our defense. We only lost to Gale Force, of course, not surprising there either, because we never go out of our way to try to counter Gale Force threats. There's no real point in us trying to, because I'm pretty sure we couldn't even do that. Resonant battles, we ended up using this team this week. Pretty straightforward, just duo skill, mobility of Wings of Mercy, and whatnot. Pretty straightforward, clear. We've had duo Corrin doing some face tanking on this side of the map, so that was interesting. To set up Wings of Mercy, of course. Allegiance battles, of course, it's the usual max scoring squad for now. Still top 1k for a long while. And Arena, we're running this team. I haven't actually built out safely for Arena scoring, but I figure it's not worth trying to stay again because next week we have absolutely nothing except Alphonse for bonus, and the odds of us staying in tier 21 with Alphonse bonus is basically 0 unless people don't play Arena, so we're not going to mess with that. It's been unfortunate the past few seasons, we just keep bouncing in and out because we don't have any solid bonus units. And Arena's ult's pretty straightforward run. Plenty of mulliganing from 760s and 762s, but you still keep getting them back to back, so it feels bad. But anyways, we'll be back when the results drop in.